People don't follow you if you're not truly being authentic.
You got to show your human factor of, why it is that you're doing what you do. And
There you go. Drill, drill, drill.
my real focus was not dentistry anymore. My real focus was building people.
What's up, you guys? I'm JM Ryerson, and you are here on the Seven Figure Dentist Playbook, and I am fired up. I get a good friend of mine going to join me as well. Matt, what's up, brother?
Hey, JM. Yeah, we're here today to talk about the art of leadership in dentistry.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to cover on the art of dentistry, and being the fact that you were a dentist and I was not, I'm curious, when it comes to leadership, did you just crush it out of the gate, man? You came out and you're like, oh man, I got this down pat. I'm going to lead my team to success. We're going to grow. Everything's amazing. Or did you have a little learning curve?
Yeah, just a little learning curve. I wish I could say I did leadership. I mean, my background, you would think I would know it. I mean, I was in Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout. Was a great leader in a lot of organizations. Was in the military. Had to do a lot of leaderships when I was in the Navy. And you would think that would just carry over into dentistry, but somehow in dentistry, there wasn't really a whole lot of talk about being a leader. It was really about doing good dentistry. And that was the whole message, at least when I was in school. And I think it still is do good dentistry and you'll have a good business. And that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning.
I'm guessing, without being in either the military or running a practice, was there a big difference in terms of how you lead in, I think it was the Navy, right?
Yes.
Versus how you led a dental practice. Did you have to kind of find your way Was that the big difference, or what did you figure out?
Well, I think the first challenge for anybody, whether they have previous military experience or not, is that you're in a situation where you're the line worker and you're the CEO at the same time. And the tendency is to sort of just default to being, you work with these staff members that you have, and the default is to just sort of be one of the gang. We're all in this together. It's kind of this sort of socialist things where we're all equals and we're all in this together. And that's where I really started out. And I started out trying to be a people pleaser. I mean, in the Navy, you're assigned people and they really don't have a say whether they're with you or not. And you could take advantage of that situation and be sort of a, do this, do that kind of person. But for me, I was in Sicily. I mean, I was in an isolated place. I couldn't replace people, so it made sense to build up those people and do some really cool things. And I had a great career. I mean, we did some amazing things with the people I had, and those people have gone on to do great things out of the military as well. And I'm proud to say that, and proud that happened with some influence there. So I started learning that. But private practice, it's a different animal. I mean, I got into private practice in a little town, and I was shocked to find out that patients actually wouldn't pay you. That's how naive I was. I mean, in the Navy, nobody paid you. Your tax dollars paid for that. So I had a lot to learn.
Yeah, I think we all did, right? I will say when I first started my leadership career, I thought I had to act a certain way. I thought I had to sound a certain way. And it wasn't my authentic self. And hey, I learned this real quick, Matt. People don't follow you if you're not truly being authentic. They see through it, right? And it's a heck of a lot of work, man. I remember always trying to be buttoned up and sound this way. People don't follow that. The moment I chose to say, you know what, forget this, I'm just going to be exactly who I am. I'm going to, empower the people that I'm surrounding myself with. It's amazing how much easier it became. But brother, I had to learn those lessons over, I want to say 7 or 8 years. I mean, it was through my entire first company. So some of the stuff we're talking about, it's not necessarily something that we learned in school. It's certainly not something that I remember learning in school. It was kind of the school of hard knocks is really how mine came about. It sounds like you had a similar experience when you started in your dental practice.
Yeah, I mean, I love you have that message of authenticity. There's that alone. If you're authentic in today's world, you're going to stand out, and that's not too scary. It's like as dentists, there's a reason that you became a dentist, right? You don't, and the public a lot of times, when I started out, we were wearing white coats, and you show up and you're a white coat, and it's almost like you're not even human. You're a doctor, and there's certain expectations with that, and some of that is good, but at the same time, you got to show your human factor of why it is that you're doing what you do, and it's important for your team to know that, and for your patients to know that, because if they just see this sort of robotic response of a dentist, they'll go, well, I guess he's good, he didn't hurt me, but there's just no passion there. And in your business, that's what you found too, right? Once you became your own self, and you're working with anybody with anything, that passion comes through, and it's a much easier route to go.
Yeah, I think it's a really important part, right? We are one thing you are as a dentist. That's literally one label. That's not your entire identity. Right. You're a guy that, like you said, you have a naval background, and you have kids, and you love, hobbies. It's like, this is one thing that doesn't define everything who you are. And so once you kind of accept that and say, look, I genuinely care about the people I work with, I would say, to get into best practices, for me, that was another great lesson, is to not just, care because, they work for me or I provide something for them, but genuinely caring about the people that you're working with. That has served me so well in my leadership. Was that the same for you, brother? I'm just curious if because you said, trying to be friends and you wanted people to like you, is kind of what I was hearing.
Yeah.
But, you also want to have somewhat of, the hierarchy, if you will, and,
sure.
and have that leadership. What did that look like for you, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I like that you bring that up, because in the Navy, you're working with, you have officers and you have enlisted people, and they have this thing called fraternization that you cannot do. So you cannot cross the line between officer and enlisted. And in a dental office, the dentist is an officer, the dental technicians, they call them, or assistants, are enlisted people. So my boss, when I first got in the Navy, he says, okay, here's the differentiation, is you need to be friendly, but not familiar. Mm-hmm. And I carried that into private practice a lot, because, your team isn't looking for you to be their friends. They want you to understand them and be familiar with them. And what you said, that, when you talk about people, so what do people want? They want to be supported. They want to feel safe. They want to feel like they're in a good environment. And in order to make that happen, if you really care about people, at least from my point of view, you're going to help them rise up. And ironically, it's funny, someone was asking me about my team and the team as it went through the years, and I said, my team kept getting better and better. Like, I'd have these people that would be awesome, and they would leave, move away, whatever, and I think, I could never replace that person. But then, the person that went in their place was actually better, and I had a very insightful person say to me, they said, well, was that maybe because you were better? And I said, exactly. That's exactly right. I had a better understanding as I went through my career that I need to lift people up, and I was better at it, and so therefore those people benefited from it. So yeah, that's what it means to really work with people.
No, 100%. Look, I think at the end of the day, we're all trying our very best to lead as most effectively as possible, because everybody watching this YouTube channel, listening, they want to grow, right? That's why we do all this stuff. And I think the point of that is how do we get better? So I'm curious, because one of the exercises I always did to improve my leadership, I read voraciously. I mean, I can't tell you how many leadership books I've read, how many leadership seminars I've been to. I mean, it's far more than I would ask any normal human being to do, so we're clear.
Yes.
But I think one of the things that was most effective for me was to actually go and get feedback. Did you have anything like that in your own practice? Something where you could get direct feedback so you know how you're showing up for your team? What did that look like for you, brother?
My story is kind of interesting. I would call myself, I got to a stage where I became what I would call a compassionate dictator. So it was pretty much my way or the highway, but there was a lot of things that we did where I would give the impression that people were making choices. They had sort of a democratic vote on things, but in my mind, I had already calculated what they were going to come up with. So the whole thing was to play this game where I would want something to happen, but I'd want to have my staff think that it was their idea, right? So I was a compassionate dictator, and I would say there was an amount of fear. And I actually had somebody come in my office to observe what we were doing, a practice management person. And this is when things were going pretty well. And he observed things, and then we went out to lunch. And he goes, Matt, he goes, everybody that works for you is afraid of you. And my answer at that point was, yeah, what's your point? And he goes, well, I just want to make sure that you understand that. I go, yeah, I do. And so it wasn't like I was this, fire out of my eyeballs kind of guy, but the message was clear. It was, this is how you do things. Don't mess up. Because if you do, you'll be replaced, kind of thing. But when he said that, I had another thing. I just talked to this gentleman, and I'm hoping to have him on a podcast soon. But I went to an endodontist office out in Washington State, and he does incredibly amounts of dentistry, but he had an incredible staff. I mean, his staff was unbelievable. And I was thinking, what's the difference here? And I learned from him that what he was doing is he was building people up. He was actually giving them leeway and trusting them to do things. I wasn't doing that. And thank God I came across him, and he invited my office to his office, and he couldn't believe I actually showed up. And it was one of the best turning points in my life. And from there on out, I did a lot of reading like you. I mean, I'm a voracious reader of, self-improvement books, leadership books, anything to make me better. My wife, she reads fiction all the time, and then she'll grab a book every once in a while, and she'll look at it, she goes, man, why do you have to read this? This is common sense, but it's not for me. I've had to learn all this stuff, and that's a good message for everybody out there. If you're not a leader, that's something you can learn.
Well, no, I think that's a good point, which is, look, if you're sitting here listening right now and you're like, I'm not a great leader. Let's just say somebody listening right now feels that way. The first part of growth is to just self-acceptance, right? Understand that, can I upgrade? Can I get better? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
One of the things I know you have is a leadership philosophy, and I do too, right? Like mine is, it's not about me. Anybody that spent any amount of time in my organization or influence, they know I'll say it all the time. It's not about me. So that's my leadership philosophy. After going out to the endodontist, I think you said out in Washington,
yeah.
Is that when you adopted your leadership philosophy? Because it's really interesting, because you use a word, or in our previous podcast, you use a word that was really important in your practice. And I'm curious if it was part of your leadership philosophy. So did you develop one, and did it serve you well? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was like the next iteration. So it was an understanding, because certainly, my practice was way above average practice. And for the most part, the team that was there was performing well. I mean, if you would have asked them if they're in a great dental office, they would have been, yeah, right away. But the problem when you lead like that is you're basically restricting those people. So on the one hand, you've got total control, but what you don't understand, and what a lot of dentists don't understand, is how much ability that your team has that's just being sort of kept down because you're not allowing them to, bring it out. And so, my philosophy is always became, I got to become a better version of myself while I'm helping others to do the same. And so that became my message to my team, because, I'm going to help others, but I expected that of them too. So they were going to reach to their teammates, obviously patients, but my real focus was not dentistry anymore. My real focus was building people. So at that point, if you ask me, well, what business are you in? I'd say I'm in the people building business. I just happen to be a dentist, but I'm in the people building business.
Yeah, and obviously from a scalability standpoint, when you understand that, yes, dentistry is what I do. However, the business I'm in is to empower or to build people. Well, now, guys, now we're talking scalability. That's when you take that next level, which is, yes, as if you've heard Matt talk on stage, drill, drill, drill. Like, your job is to drill, drill, drill.
That's right.
But if you heard, what's that?
That's right.
Well, so it is. And I've heard you say it, and it's very loud and clear. Yet at the same time, what you really were there to do is to build and empower. Why is that? I mean, we talk about leadership all the time. And again, all those books that your wife's like, yeah, this is common sense, dude. Like, why do you have to read this? But what is it about leadership? Why is empowering people so important? Because one of the things I've seen, brother, is micromanagement is a challenge within the dental space. This feeling of, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done well. And the moment I see that, Matt, it pains me, because I know they're putting a real limit to their growth. Like, immediately your growth, you got a glass ceiling above you.
We had a meeting a while back, where face to face, and they had a whole group of dentists that felt that way. And I don't know that there's something to say that particularly that makes it sink in. But at that same meeting, I was talking to their staffs in a separate group. And these people were passionate about working in their practice, but they were most passionate about doing the best they could for their doctor. I mean, they already had an attitude of servanthood, but they felt trapped because they wanted to do things, but when they tried to do things, it was squelched. Or if they tried to do something and it wasn't quite what the doctor wanted, they got sort of ridiculed for it. Or if they were trying to through the process, the doctor's always popping in, hey, where are you at with this? Let me do this. And it became very frustrating for them because they couldn't do their thing. So I don't know what the cure for micromanagement is, except just stop. And I think, all of this goes on. It's like, well, how do you work with these people? And trust is a real thing, right? Well, you do have to spend time letting people know what it is that you expect. And again, we talked about authenticity, but next comes, what do I expect? And for me, my team, they knew I expect excellence. Well, that's a high bar, but then at the same time, there was constant communication between me, or if it wasn't be all the way down the line, it was a team leader, which we'll talk about team leaders in a moment, but there was some communication, so it was pretty clear what the expectations were. Doesn't mean I have to spell out A, B, C, all the steps. It's just like, well, here's what I expect. And in the beginning, you do have to spell out some things because they don't really know how you think. But it's a beautiful thing after you've done this for several years when someone comes up to you and go, hey, doc, there's this issue. We went ahead and developed a system to take care of it. We're just letting you know that we did that. We knew that's what you would do. And the funny part of that sometimes was that when they said they just knew that would be what I would do, it was actually better or more brave than how I would have handled that situation. And that is so cool.
That's beautiful. That's when you know things are really starting to click, where it's like...
It's a beautiful thing, yes.
Oh, man. They do it better than you would have done anyway. And that's what I'm going to talk about at the summit. Less is more is my subject. For anybody that, if you're going to the summit, if you're not, please do, because you're going to grow. Less is more. This is less of
drill,
you.
Drill.
There you go. Drill. You mentioned
right.
team leaders, brother. I'm curious.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, the relationship that you have with your team leaders, what the consistency of, I'll call them check-ins. What does that look like in a really successful dental practice? Because one of the things I also see, okay, great, you set the expectations.
Right.
Don't want you to micromanage, but that doesn't mean you just send them off to, all by themselves and just figure it out.
Right.
What did your follow-up system, what did that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted, it's constant communication. So for me, it was every week at a set time, scheduled. There was no, we can't do it this week because we got a patient that we had to put in this time. Nope. So we had a definitive time where first I talked to my manager, and we'll talk about that too, and then that was just 45 minutes, and then we bring in the team leaders for another 45 minutes. Why separate? Because maybe the manager is actually having some issues or challenges, I should say, with particular team leaders, and you want him or her to feel free to express, what their challenges are so that you can help them. And this isn't putting your monkey on your back. They're expressing this, and as you know, JM, you work with a lot of people. A lot of times people just verbalize it. They figure it out themselves. And then they had a time set. So we did this on Tuesday mornings. And then on Thursday morning, they all met together and they worked on the things that we had talked about in the meeting with me. So I was like, okay, we're taking action on this. Let's put our heads together and get this figured out. And so things get done. So if you're listening to this, you're thinking, wow, that's amazing, but the people I have, I don't know that, I don't even know where to start. And so how do you even identify who your team leaders are? And my answer to that is they'll identify themselves. And a lot of times you have to be careful because for instance, if you have a dental assistant and she just knows everything, she is like the perfect clinician. She doesn't miss a mark. So you might go, well, she's the best at what she does, so maybe she should be the team leader. And that might not be the case. She might be just a really skilled technician, but she would be horrible as a team leader, wouldn't even want that position. And so as you're trying to pick people, and you have one for each department, you have your hygiene department, your administrative team, and the clinical team. And you can be thinking, and if you're just starting out and you've got a few employees, you don't necessarily have to have one of all those right away. You just pick your hottest person, the person that you think is going to really, it seems like they've bought into what you're doing, they've drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. They're all in. That person might be a dental assistant, and so you want to figure out, okay, well, is she the one? And so what I have people do is a little exercise is say, well, just approach this person. So, hey, Mary, how's it going? I was just curious if I went away tomorrow and I left you in charge, what are some of the things that you would do to, fix things up? Things that you see that are going on that you'd like to change. And you don't have to answer me right now because I'm just hitting you with this. But would you think about that and then write a list for me or type out a list and put it on my desk by Friday? And they'll say, sure. And so when Friday comes, and you don't say anything the rest of the week, when Friday comes, if that paper isn't on your desk, that's not your team leader, okay? Hopefully that paper is on your desk and it's got reams of information on there. That's a team leader.
I also was thinking, what do you look for in your leaders? So like, for instance, I've written several different blogs on this, but I always land on really there's three things I think every leader has to have. And maybe this will help them really sift through the people, Matt. And I'm curious to see what your three or however many attributes you're looking for.
That's not fair. You tell me your three first.
Oh, I'm going to. I got it right here.
You show me yours and I'll show you mine.
There you go. Well, mine, number one is empathy. If you don't have empathy, I will not even consider you for a leadership role. Because if you can't put yourself in someone else's shoes, which by the way, this is my biggest challenge as a leader. I've had to continue to work on this.
Right.
So empathy for me is huge.
Right.
Number two, which you've been talking about, and I want to dive into this a little further after we get through talking about the attributes, but communication.
Yep.
Do you have the ability to truly communicate? And that means, just like we're doing here, give and take, right? Can you listen? Then can you actually communicate something to make sure that it's received? And then lastly, confidence. Yeah. I believe in confidence is one of the most important things for a leader. And I'm not talking that outlandish, abrasive and loud leader. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that confidence that they have. It could be a quiet confidence that they know I'm going to make that decision. Because here's the good or the bad news of leadership. You are going to make decisions that other people don't like. And if you can accept that right now, good news, you're going to do fine in leadership, but you're not always going to be liked. So I look for that. And I'm curious, Matt, I like the test that you did with that team leader, like go do this. And if it doesn't show up, well, geez, you can't even be accountable to one thing I'm asking for. Right. That's a great filter. But did you have, attributes that you really look for in your leaders?
You don't have to be this sort of robust personality. So for instance, in my office, there was a time where we were losing our administrative team leader, and I had a real crackerjack dental assistant who, she's a great listener. She did everything according to, basically how I laid out. I mean, if you said, you say it this way, she said it exactly that way. And she was really great with patients, but she's very quiet. And to my amazement, when came out to the office that the administrative team leader was leaving, she stepped up and she says, I want to move to being the administrative team leader. And I was like, Brandy, first you're going to defect from the clinic and go to the admin team? Gave her some crap about that. And she says, yeah, I think I can do it. And I go, you realize it's a whole different show up there. Back here, you're working with the doctor, one patient at a time. Up there, you've got people calling, you got people coming in the door, you got people exiting. It's like you're a machine gunner in your trenches, and you're like, and things are coming at you all the time. She goes, I think I can handle it. And so we put her up there and started working with it. And by golly, she's an amazing administrative team leader. And so what you were saying about confidence, quiet confidence is actually better than someone who's a little more robust with things, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's something, for whatever reason, at some point, people think confidence and they think it's this huge personality. And it's just some of the greatest leaders, I don't know, I think of Gandhi, Mother Teresa, even Nelson Mandela. They didn't have this huge personality, but they had this nice confidence about them. Now, there are those really big leaders that we've heard of through the years. But that's not defining, right?
Right. And in the context of, our dental office, is that confidence again, goes back to the doctor. Why would somebody be confident in how they're doing things? Well, because they know what the message is and they've bought into it, and they know that they're safe as long as they stay within the parameters of what the leader has established in the first place. So that's where a lot of confidence comes from. And of course, you have to be competent in what you do. So, in that situation, we have Brandy, who really hadn't done a whole lot of admin stuff, but she was confident enough that with the systems that we had in play, and she's like, oh, I'm smart, I'll figure all that out. And she did. So that was it was a big success for her and for me. I'm really proud of her, and she's still chugging along today, doing an amazing job.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, look, if somebody says, I can do it, I want it, there's nobody but, that's fantastic. Yeah. You mentioned the communication, and one of the things you said is constant communication. One of the big challenges I see in dental practices is that communication between the front and the back, or as you said, the admin and the clinic side. And I think one of the things as a leader, it really is your responsibility to set the tone, figure out the cadence, and make sure you paint the vision, right? Here's our vision, because your team cannot hear your vision enough, in my opinion. If you said the vision of the practice every single day, I don't think it'll ever get old. I do think it's that important.
You're right.
I'm curious your thoughts on that, especially the front to the back or the clinic to the admin side. How were you able to really make sure that that relationship was strong and that there wasn't a division between the two, but rather we're on the same page? Because I think as the leader of that location or your practice, or, it's one of the most important things that you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's communications. Well, how do you do that? And the problem is that there's a physical barrier in a dental office. You've got your reception area, and the administrative staff is kind of up there, and they're kind of closed off offices, and then you go back into the clinical area, and that's all kind of closed off, and you're in your little treatment areas. So, and this, you play the telephone game and what the message is. And so a lot of language can be twisted around. Now, sometimes there's people that sort of looking for that, and they're problematic. And I would say if you're in an office where you have that tension, you should identify it's usually not everybody against everybody else. There's usually individuals. And so if you're trying to, I would weed those out first and try to get that communication going. And this is old school now, because everybody's about digital things on their phone and everything. But, we wore radios in our office, and we still do. So it's just, in the old days, some people listen to this, they don't even know who Radio Shack is, but Radio Shack had radios. and so you wear that. But if you go to big restaurants, like where they have a lot of floor space, you go to big retail, a lot of times you're going to see people with an earpiece in their ear, and it's to a radio. Now, why would they do that? Because they have the same problem. They have separation in spaces, and they need to communicate. So a lot of times a maitre d' in a really big restaurant will be communicating. And what are they communicating? They're talking to the back. Well, you guys ready? Do you have this table ready? This reservation's here, kind of thing. Same thing in a dental office. Administrative people say, we've got this patient is here for the 3 o'clock. They're 5 minutes early, obviously. But we're just wondering if you guys have a chair open. And then there's a response. No, not quite yet, but we can put them in this other room, but I'm cleaning up. Would you go ahead and do that for me? Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the administrative team will escort the patient to the back and, get them set in. So you have this communication back and forth. And that was always, the rule is, always positive. There's no negative things on the radio. So about as negative as it got was, as an example, this would be something that would happen in my office. So the admin team, it's in the morning, it's Monday morning or something, and it's 9 o'clock, and they go, hey, just so you guys know, your 2 o'clock big bridge, big production number bridge just called and canceled. And the first time that happened, when it was done that way, the team leader in the back, her response was, awesome. And then there was this you heard this sort of giggle go through the office. And that was so cool because that set the tone on that day, because between that 9 and the 2 o'clock cancellation, they figured things out, put things together, and we had a bigger day at the end of the day than we had originally scheduled for that day. So, they're working together. They're talking. Well, they're talking to the hygienist. You've got so-and-so in their chair. Would they like to stay today? Hey, assistants, I see that you've got another patient that has some other things to do. Do you think we could call them in? So there's just that regular communication. And when they're communicating like that, there's no mystery about what's going on.
Yeah, there's a couple points that we just have to make sure people hear loud and clear. I love the rule of nothing negative over the radio, right?
Right.
I would also say for you guys listening, in group settings, we don't ever call anyone out in that group setting. If you're going to have what I call a crucial conversation, which by the way is a fantastic book if you want to work on your communication, Crucial Conversations, fantastic. Awesome. But if you're having a crucial conversation, that happens behind closed doors, one-on-one, right? Because we know right now, 70% of people are currently not engaged in the workforce. Well, why? Because of lack of recognition. So, two points there. Make sure if you're having those negative conversations or crucial conversations, that takes place one-on-one, never in a group setting. The second thing, and one of the most important things, in my opinion, for a leader to do is to recognize, encourage, praise. And I call it EPR, encourage, praise, and recognize your team. And the other thing, Matt, that I loved, what that person did that said awesome. And I was wondering if they were being sarcastic. No, they were like, awesome. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, no, it was just because another thing you should learn about our office was there's 3 words that keep things positive. One is awesome, the other one is amazing, and the other one is fantastic. So she could have said any one of those 3 words, and there would have been a giggle. But underneath it all is like, yeah, I mean, stuff happens, so it's still awesome. It's still fantastic. It's still amazing because we're amazing and we're going to get something done. So those are 3 great words that everybody should memorize and use.
Well, and here's the deal. It's outside of your control. There's nothing you can do. They canceled. So I love her response, which is, it's outside of my control. What can I do? And they filled the schedule, had an even bigger day than they were with the bridge case. I love that, man, because again, you can't do anything about it. So complaining about it does you no good. And it's one of the things I talk about. Look, you're in complete control of your attitude and your activity. How's yours today? I'm looking down. It's been almost 50 minutes. My goodness, we are flying. I want to give you kind of that open forum. Anything leadership we didn't talk about that you want to make sure to get across to the audience, because at the end of the day, what we want is people to increase their leadership, continue to empower their people, and grow their practice. So any last thoughts, brother, as we start to wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, leadership is a process. So, if you decide, okay, I'm going to be a leader, well, okay, then you've titled yourself a leader, and and then you have to move to the next thing is like, well, if you just say, well, I'm doing this because, you need to do this because I told you so. That's one kind of leader, but you move quickly past that. And initially, you need to sort of walk around and see what's going in this practice. What are some things that I can do to help my people get better? And listen to people and make some things happen, start producing some changes. And when your staff sees that you're doing that, they're going to respect that even more. And one thing that I have to say this, so JM, you're not a dentist, but you're probably not going to believe this, but I have to tell dentists to smile. I mean, how sad is that?
Show off those beautiful chiclets, man. Come on.
That's right. So I got huge teeth, so I can't smile too much. It blinds people. But you got to smile. You got to be happy to be there. And it goes back to, what's your authentic self? And, why am I a dentist? And if there's not some happy reason that you're a dentist, then maybe you should be doing something else. But I'm sure there's some happy reason and a lot of drive to do that. So be happy about that and know that as a leader, if you walk in the first thing in the morning, you got a grump face on, that's going to be a bad day. So you got to make yourself smile, even if crap is happening wherever else outside your world. Come in with a smile.
So as I think, as we start to wrap up, one of the things we mentioned earlier is all of the reading that we've done. And, a couple of resources came to mind for me, Matt. John Maxwell is kind of the leadership guru. 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is just a book that I think everyone can get value from. Maybe an easier.
Yeah, another good one is another good one is 5 Levels of Leadership. I think that, especially when you're working with new team leaders, they'll understand that. It'll help them a lot.
Yeah, that's a good book to actually read with your group as well.
Yes.
And then maybe the easiest read, because it's parable format, is the Go Giver Leaders series. I just think Bob Berg and I think it's John David Mann, if I remember correctly. But anyway, it's such an easy read. But, I guess what I would say, and then, this was fun, man. I love talking about leadership and just, I could talk about it forever. But what I would say is, guys, figure out what your leadership philosophy is and really set, as Matt said earlier in the episode, set the expectations. Let people know this is what we're doing. This is what you should expect of me. This is what I expect of you. And when you do that, people can really get behind what you're doing. So, I know, Matt, I would love to do a deep dive on this, maybe on leadership in the near future. And I'd also love to hear from the audience, what they would love to hear when we're doing these. So I don't know. That's kind of my ask, audience, is please let us know what subjects you want to hear about, man. And make sure to share this with somebody. Matt, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing is set your expectations out there. And I would say dentists, they're afraid to really, set the bar high. And I think, and that was probably one of the things that was one of my faults early on, was that I didn't really set the bar high enough because I misjudged how much people could do. And again, that was part of that growing process where I really learned, hey, these people can do some amazing things, got to turn them loose. But you also go ahead and set the bar high, and I think you'll be surprised at what happens with that.
No, I agree, man. People will absolutely rise to the occasion. Well, guys, make sure to share, subscribe, get this out to people that you know and love. Give us your comments. And Matt, thanks for being here, brother. This is fun.
Thank you, JM. Look forward to doing it again.
Let's do it.